So, hello people. This lesson is one of the most important things that you can hear as a composer. I will go really into philosophy of music this time and address a big issue that was in my thoughts, that is in my thoughts, perhaps since I started to learn music towards musical composition. In the last days, I I figure out how to synthesize and to resume these ideas in an introductory matter. And this is called the historical problem of classical music. So what I do here is to try to compress the the principle, or perhaps one of the most important problems that affect many things towards compositional questions, aesthetic questions regarding classical music today. So I try to give here the the root problem of many symptoms that we are experiencing every day in one way or another. The the key thing is to understand that I do here a more philosophical approach in the sense of a prioristic thinking. So I think about things from the point of view of logic and hypothesis. Okay, so this is not a musicological lesson or a lesson in empiric history of music. It is an analysis of some content of history of music based on the principal philosophical concepts that I could mention and that are relevant for this manner. So let's start. So the historical problem with classical music. So we always had music. Okay, so music is like is not a new and big thing, but the classical music, this idea of classical music is something a little bit different. So we have to understand at the same time how it is built, this concept of classical music, and why inside of this concept there is already its problem. So music as a whole was always very important for as an accompaniment of the sacred, so accompaniment of rituals. And with Christianity, of course, music was very important for to accompany the main rituals of the principal religion of the West. Here you can see the root cause of this that led to our understanding of classical music. I mean, our understanding as we had in the Romantic era. Okay, so the idea of the sacred is in itself a very complex idea that has to do with the infinite. So you can always you never, your expression of the sacred never ends, and the sacred is also very important. So it never ends and is very important. Now, if the music has some service for the sacred, it requires skill, because music is an art, and art was always conceived as skill, okay, in the Western tradition. Now, the skill, this concept of skill, when related to the sacred, creates a problem. And the problem is you can always have more skill. You always need more skill. So to achieve the goal of the accompaniment of the sacred, you need this method. So to achieve the best skill, okay, the best skill, because the sacred is the best, and we want the best skill to combine with and express the sacred, okay. Now, this means we open here the possibility of endless upgrade, okay. It's a very important idea. When you develop the skill to such a higher level, in the case of music, for example, like Palestrina, or when you just develop the art to a higher level, the consequence now is not only to do some accompaniment of the sacred, a simple accompaniment, so an accessory accompaniment, but it is expected that you express the sacred, okay. It is expected because now that is possible, now that there is a possibility due to the high level of skill, then there is the expectation. And not only the sacred, most commonly in Catholic terms or Christian terms, you see the potential to express ideas in general. So poetic, this is what I call the poetic idea. This means the ideas that synthesize the symbolic experience of human beings in the world. Okay, your symbolic experience of the world. Okay. So for example, when you have an opera by Wagner, by Mozart, symphony, La Mer, Debussy. So they are about a poetic idea.
mesto e dolente, visti già mesto e dolente, or gioisco e quegli affanni che sofferti ho per tant'anni fan più caro il ben presente. Visti già mesto e dolente, visti già mesto e dolente. Sol per te, bella Euridice, sol per te, bella Euridice, benedico il mio tormento, dopo il dual vi è più contento, dopo il mal vi è più felice. Sol per te, bella Euridice, sol per te, bella Euridice.
Now, the pathos of the poetic idea is the emotional content attached to it, and we see this very clear with Monteverdi, with the first opera, the first well-known opera. So Orfeo et Euridice. I know this title in so many languages that I confuse myself, which is the Orfeo e Eurídice. Okay, so now we see that with such level of skill we can express these things, and because we should. The problem now that rise, or not the I would not call the problem yet, but is that earlier the goal was accessory. And by the way, I think this goes hand in hand with Hegel's analysis of the symbolic phase of art, and Schelling spoke about this something similar. But here I give the synthesis of my own thoughts, how I conceive all this after many years thinking about the relationship between classical music and our contemporaneity. Okay. By the way, I should highlight this, because otherwise people will think that I'm speaking about history of music, and that this is not a very important matter for us, but this is the question for us to understand this. So the goal was an accessory accompaniment of the sacred method for this to achieve the best skill because of the sacred. The consequence to now you can express the sacred, and you can express the pathos of the poetic idea. So the skills that you learned for the sacred, now you can use to express other types of content. See how interesting this is. Then it happens something important. The new goal now is not only the accessory accompaniment. It is something related to the universal. Okay. So it has to do with a timeless expression of some drive of the mankind. Okay. It has to meet the needs of an universal drive of mankind. Okay. This is what starts to happen with classical music, and the more you go to the late romantic, the more this idea here will be realized and concretized. We are speaking broad historical terms. Perhaps in the time of Palestine or Ars Nova, it was not so concrete, this concept here. But what we see and what we start to expect from classical music, the image, the concept of classical music and what makes it classical has a lot to do with being universal and being timeless. Okay, so in the Romantic era, people start to call Bach and Mozart timeless classics. So we have now a new goal and new existential meaning of what classical music means, and basically we have the birth of the concept of classical music, because remember, for Monteverdi was not composing classical music, he was composing music, but he knew he was composing music of another kind for other purpose. And then later you have Heinrich Schütz in Buxtehude. For these people, it was clear when they were composing serious music and not so serious music. So there's the stilus luxurians, the stilus theatralis, stilus gravis. So they knew all this stuff. The important is that when they compose in the stilus gravis, so in the stilus in the style of a more strict counterpoint with serious themes, they knew that this was the essence of this tradition that other countries could not imitate so well, and that this is the essence that that remains later in our conception of classical music. So they composed minuets as well, like Lully, but this was not this is not seen as the essence of classical music. Okay, it's not the minuet for harpsichord of Mozart, but the symphony, the Jupiter symphony with the amazing end, with the amazing fugue at the end. So this idea that we have a type of music that express the core drive of us as mankind. And another very good example is the Ninth Symphony of Beethoven that I heard, by the way, in Vienna, in the concert house, and it was one of the best experience of my life in the heavy on the first day of the year, long time ago. So then we changed the existential meaning, or the existential meaning changed towards this concept. Now, we spoke about the skill. Okay, skill is an essential component of the concept of art principle in a more classical conservative perspective, and it comes from the Greek von techne. So the problem of the skill is that it is supposed to progress.
More principle.
Sorry, maybe then you go a little bit further with your idea of less is more and more is more. Like,
it's very simple. It's very simple. You know, it's very simple. I remember when I was first starting recording, the first solo album, the first Steeler album was produced by Mike Warning, but it wasn't really, it was just more or less, I'm sitting there going, yeah, great. And then the second one I did was Alcatraz had a producer in there. And he kept on telling me to slow down. You know, I said, hey, slow down. I'm like, oh. You know, remember, less is more. Less is more. And I always said, how can that be? How can less be more? It's impossible. More is more. You know, simple logic.
Okay, so this is a very important relationship to observe. Okay, you even put in another color. So this is the, here you have the issue. So skill is supposed to progress. You always want more skill. You want to develop your skills. You want to be the best in some type of competition. Skills always generate competition, and this competition will always motivate people to be better in their skills. So one of the goals of the skill is this expression, as we pointed out already. And the problem of expression, this is very, very important component of the problem of classical music, and it's one of really my key thoughts that I think about this the whole time. And I am so confident of my observation that I risk to say it might be written in some very important book about aesthetics, because this observation is just solid. Do you understand? So the problem of expression is that expression gets saturated. So this is, I really see this as a law. Okay. Expression needs to be refreshed. Okay. The history of art shows this, and no matter how conservative we might see art, we won't kill the need for a refreshment of the means of expression unless we are like the Egyptians, the ancient Egyptians, and keep the same rules of art for 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years. So the whole dynasty was the source for some aesthetic and artistical rules, and it changed only when it changed the dynasty or something similar, like this. This is, I remember from lessons in history of art. It is basically in this spirit. So the whole dynasty determines the whole artistical era, about how people are described when they are dead, how they are painted. And only when changed the dynasty, it might be accepted another artistical style. But we live in a culture that gives importance to the expression, and somehow in an unconscious way we understand that expression, a specific means of a method of expression, might die over time or get saturated. And this has two reasons that I can point out. The first reason is the nature of perception. Okay. The second reason, I call it Hegelian argument. So the nature of perception is so that if we repeat some stimuli or stimulations, they start to get unnoticed. Okay. Um, this is a statement based on my observation. But if you start to take a look into behavioral psychology or psychology of perception, I think you will find a lot of content given the basis, the empiric basis for this statement, until the most complex details based on biology. Okay, but we don't need it. We know it. So this is somehow obvious. What I do, in my opinion, what a philosopher does is to explain the obvious things that are forgotten, not the obvious things that are already there in this cliche, but the obvious things that are forgotten. They are somehow noticed, but they are under the consciousness. Okay. So the nature of perception gives so the problem of expression, the saturation of expression, has a reason to be, and one of the causes is the nature of our perception. Now, the Hegelian argument is another component, and cause for the problem of expression, and this law that says expression is supposed to be saturated, or expression gets saturated over time. I might find a better formulation for this too. So the Hegelian argument, the Hegelian argument here is basically my reception of his philosophy. I respect a lot the complexity of the philosophy of Hegel. Here, what I do is to take what is relevant. So the basic idea is that our concepts about reality, they are in constant development, and this means a logical development. This logical development starts to create the history of concept. So, for example, Plato thought about music. He had a concept of music, and thinking about music, we start to develop this concept logically. And while we develop the concept of music logically and philosophically, we start to have another impact in reality. Okay, so what we think determines reality, but also the other way around is important. Reality, historical reality, is in constant change and creates new factors that start to affect the concepts. And these new factors, they are like a big qualitative change. There are some events that have a new, that are like the birth of a new and important quality in the order of things, that will force you to reconceptualize reality or do a revision of your concept. So a very basic example are the experiments in quantum physics. Okay, so the idea is that our concepts about things, they are not always perfectly adequate. They are always not in sync with the present. It's a fantastic idea. So also our concept of music is always in some delay, and it's not in totally sync with the present. Now, to express the existential meaning and universal emotion, or universal values of mankind, and to be timeless, paradoxically, we have to incorporate the present reality, because the present reality can't be negated. The present reality is also made by mankind and has a potentially new important factor, a new important event that has to be considered. Otherwise, we couldn't express the concept of mankind properly through art. See how fascinating this is. Because of this, we have to express the present musically speaking as well. Not only the present, I am not a presentist, but I think we have the duty of somehow incorporate the present. Even if you are composing medieval fantasy music, you have to be aware of the present, of the deep reality of the present. Now, this is a reason why the skill has to progress. Okay, so so we have to develop also new skills or means of expression in order to express the new content towards the essence of art and and so new skills or means of expression in order to express the new content or substantially new events that are game changers towards the essence of art and mankind. Okay, so for example, a game changer event is the fact that we can compose music with computers. Okay, another game changer event is that we are not so closed in our country or city anymore. Things like this, they have an impact on how we see ourselves as mankind and what are the relevant things to express through art. Um, so so the skill is always in some progress. Also because of the question of the musical material that I don't want to come here into this question. It has to do with the nature of perception. I just point the most radical cause, and that are more or less easy to explain. Okay, so so this is the problem of expression, and the conclusion is expression needs to be refreshed. It needs to change. Okay, it needs to change. So now you got the problem of classical music, or the elements to understand the problem of classical music. So we have, in one hand, the existential meaning as an let's say universalist thing, and anachronistic. So timeless existential meaning towards expression of mankind, and the skills that come with this. So the historical techniques, versus the question of the progression of skill. So the problem of expression. Okay, so it it's it gets spoiled, it gets kitschy. Okay, this historical techniques, they will get kitschy, and we need a progression of skill that that somehow combines with this thing here. Okay, so how is this possible? We need a progression of the skills that does not ignore this component here. But on the other hand, this component here, so the historical techniques, they can't stay historic forever, because the progression of skill and the problem of expression is a reality. Okay, so this is the problem of classical music. Now, what did the avant-gardists did? In my opinion, many of them, they just ignored the problem of classical music, and they created another type of music that is, I don't know if we should call classical music. I don't want to depreciate everything that is contemporary music, but I think they solved this problem by ignoring this aspect here and just focusing on progression of skill, on refreshing, on refreshing the expression. Okay, so I think they didn't solve this problem, and the important thing is to understand the problem. Okay, if you want to solve a problem, if you want to solve a problem, you have to understand the problem the best you can. This video is not about the solution of the problem, but the hint is that somehow we have to understand how the historical techniques that are proven effective to express the sacred and the pathos of the poetic idea, how can they still develop and integrate the in themselves the needs of our time. So this is the thing to think about, and your main task is to try to understand the problem. If the description here is not so good, please give a comment for we keep talking about this. And by understanding this problem, you are already very close to a higher improvement when it comes to become or to be a better composer. Okay, so thanks for watching. Please give a like and subscribe, because this is a lesson that perhaps it is missing in today's university, that someone teaches you these things when you are learning musical composition today. So ciao ciao.